Hi everyone, my name's Fabio Kelly. I'm based at the Centre for Appearance Research at the University of West of England in Bristol in the UK. Siobhan from Lipodystrophy UK has kindly invited me to speak a little bit about appearance concerns and specifically about something called acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, and how it may apply to any condition that may affect someone's appearance, including lipodystrophy. And it's great to mark World Lipodystrophy Day, and yeah, it's nice to have an opportunity to speak with you, and I hope that you find some use maybe from what I might say. Some of it, applies to appearance concerns, but also it can be applied to just any life stresses as well. And I should say I'm very much not an expert on lipodystrophy, so and I don't pretend to be. The work that I do and my colleagues do at the Centre for Appearance Research looks at what we call visible differences, so any condition or cause of a different or atypical, unusual appearance, and the psychological effects of that, and all of the kind of the psychology around appearance and different ways of supporting individuals, trying to create a more accepting society, less focused on appearance, whilst acknowledging that obviously body image and appearance is very much a kind of focal point nowadays of society. So what do we mean by appearance concerns? Well, we know that although obviously there are differences in terms of how someone with, for example, a congenital condition like cleft lip and or palate, which is what we consider to be one type of visible difference, the experience of going through health services and all of the other factors that might affect someone's psychological experience will differ from conditions. So cleft lip and palate may differ to, for example, various skin conditions like alopecia or psoriasis. So we know that, just as with lipodystrophy as well, there are lots of different physical health problems or challenges that are associated with having that condition. So we very much don't mean to minimise at all that people with health conditions that may affect appearance obviously have significant health issues as well. What we do is we look at some of the psychological experiences related to appearance, and we found that many people who have an appearance affecting condition, whether it be a congenital craniofacial condition, so one that affects someone's facial or appearance of the head, skin conditions, and other things like burn scarring, other scarring, limb loss. So the research we do looks at all of these different conditions, and historically we've not really given enough focus on rarer conditions like lipodystrophy as well. So it's great to be a bit more involved and start thinking about it a bit more. So many people cope with having an appearance affecting condition very well. For many people, there's a very healthy adjustment to having a condition that affects your appearance. And so we certainly don't mean to say that if you have lipodystrophy, we expect you to have appearance concerns. But we know that for some they do. And some very normal psychological reactions to that adjustment include things like self-consciousness, social anxiety, and as a result really avoiding public or social activities to stay safe. And when I say to stay safe, it's that sense of keeping oneself safe as a natural human reaction to try and avoid any perceived threats, from feeling judged about one's appearance, and also challenges in romantic intimacy as well. And that picture there on the screen gives you a nice example of someone on a bus. Sort of is standing actually quite in the opposite direction of someone, but in so doing it can make people feel quite conspicuous as well. Obviously during COVID times things are a little bit different. There are fewer public or social situations to avoid, but yeah, these are some of the common things pre-COVID and hopefully post-COVID that people have told us they experience. My personal research questions, and that's something I'll bring into what I'll be talking about now a little bit, is a bit different to maybe mainstream psychology. My question is, for all appearance affecting conditions, is feeling better about your appearance the only way to enjoy good quality of life? Historically, that's what we've tried to focus on in supporting people to, try and look at how we might change or restructure the way we think, and that might include about how we look. The question is there another route? We know that for many people with appearance affecting conditions, some of the thoughts they have may be very real about appearance, and your appearance might not be easy to change in itself. So is there another route to trying to basically enjoy a good quality of life and do what matters to you? So this is where something called acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT for short, comes in. Developed in the 90s by US psychologists Steve Hayes and Kelly Wilson. It's similar but different to something that you may well have heard of, cognitive behavior therapy, which is essentially to do with cognitive, so looking at the way of we think and trying to adjust the way we think, behavior, trying to change the way that we behave. So it's technically a type of cognitive behavior therapy, but there's a slightly different focus with ACT. It focuses on how you act, hence the acronym, why it's very suitable, and less about actually what we're thinking. It's more about our relationship to our thoughts, and as it says, as it includes in the title, a more accepting kind of attitude towards the thoughts we might have. So importantly with ACT, it's about doing more that makes your life good, and for each person that will be different. For someone it might be engaging in exercise and maybe going to a swimming pool, despite appearance concerns, or for someone else it might be attending a college class despite appearance concerns. So acceptance and commitment therapy really in simple terms is made up of two main pillars. Is one way of thinking about it. One being mindfulness, that again you may well have heard of, and that in a nutshell is a capacity to be aware of and open to unwanted thoughts and feelings. Valued action, that is knowing what's important to you, so understanding your sort of personal values, and also engaging in actions that follow your values, so things that really matter to you and are connected to what's important to you. So what's mindfulness? You may well have heard of it, you may not. It's got two parts to it really. So first is the capacity to actually have some control over where you're paying attention. And it may seem a bit disconnected to appearance concerns, but actually it very much underpins the ability to kind of control where we're paying attention, and that could include paying attention to what is really important to us, rather than, for example, being understandably very much focused on perceived threats. In the case of self-consciousness and social anxiety, it might be fear of what other people think about our appearance. So the second part is attention that is curious, open, and accepting. So it's a very friendly type of attention. So one little way of exploring mindfulness is actually to do a very quick little exercise now, which we can do together. Basically, if you can get you just to hold your hands out, so you can do this at home wherever you are, and so you're going to start now just by clapping your hand together, and then just holding your hands a little apart, and closing your eyes, and just noticing the sensations in your hands. You might notice some tingling, other sensations, and exploring it with some interest, some friendly interest, like you're a curious explorer. Do those sensations change at all? Do you want them, or do you not want them? Just noticing that perception of whether you like them or not. So focusing on the sensations in both the hands. And now just focusing, so narrowing your attention just to your right hand. This again, without any judgment, exploring the sensations in your hand. And now just the little finger on your right hand. And then returning to both hands, and then feeling your whole body, the sensations across all of your body. then returning to where we are. So yeah, very, very quick, simple practice of what I mean by mindfulness. So control of your attention. So directly kind of directing your attention in a way that's conscious and intentional. And also the orientation of that attention is curious, open, accepting. And obviously, many of you probably well aware of different mindfulness apps and other ways of engaging in mindfulness practices. So part of mindfulness, that being open to thoughts and feelings, you could think of through a metaphor as being like having a beach ball, and you might be on the beach, and that beach ball it represents all those unwanted thoughts and feelings that you may have, for example, about your appearance. Now, it's very tempting when we have those horrible thoughts, those unwanted thoughts, to try and push the ball down into the water, get rid of it. What happens when we, try and push the beach ball into the water? It's just going to keep popping back up into our face, isn't it? Harder. So the analogy is, do we try and push the ball down into the water, those unwanted thoughts and feelings, or do we just allow it to float? So it might get in the way a little bit, but actually it's about the acceptance part of it, maybe about just allowing it to be there, but not trying to get rid of it or push it down. So that analogy is essentially trying to get rid of our thoughts, which we find can be very difficult actually, and often doesn't work, and the struggle itself exhausts us. Or we can just try and let it be as it is, acknowledging that actually, it may be quite a discomforting thought to experience, but actually we can still live the life that we want despite those thoughts being there. So in a way, one way to think about it is turning but into and. So for example, and this is based on a series of interviews with people with a range of appearance affecting conditions, they often talked about how going through a course of acceptance commitment therapy helped them to change in terms of social anxiety. So a feeling, for example, of actually, I'd like to go out and see a friend or member of family, but I'm feeling really self-conscious about my appearance today. So the first thing is, I want to go out, but I feel anxious, so I can't. And actually being open, developing more openness to those kinds of feelings and thoughts, changes from I want to go out, but I feel anxious, to I want to go out and I feel anxious. So actually they can exist together. And obviously going out, you may experience some more unwanted thoughts and feelings when you are self-conscious about appearance. But actually, if it's really important to you to go out and see, say, family, if actually family is an important value, for example, then the kind of important thing in this model, at least, is doing what's important to you, because ultimately that's what gives you, really good quality of life. So being aware of thoughts and feelings. So that's the other kind of part of mindfulness. So this is this illustration here shows the difference between getting really caught up in something. So this analogy here is of like pop-up adverts on your computer screen or on your phone. We know how annoying they can be, but also they can be a bit like clickbait. They can try and grab your attention, a bit like maybe headlines of particular websites and things. And in this example, it says there's something wrong with you. And it's very easy for us to get really close up to those thoughts and almost end up acting from them rather than seeing them. So do we click on the clickbait? Do we think, oh yes, there is something wrong with me, or that, there is something wrong with my appearance, or people will stare and I really need to act with, and absorb that. Versus the character on the right, you can see they've just stepped back a little bit. It's still there, the message hasn't changed, so we're not trying to change the thoughts, but we've clocked it rather than clicking. I think that's maybe quite an English term, but as in we've seen it, we're aware of it rather than clicking on it. We've taken a step back, and that just gives us a little bit more space to actually make more of a conscious choice about what we want to do. So that ability to do that comes naturally with regular mindfulness practice as well, but it can also be targeted by itself. So there's one particular exercise that you can do, anyone can do pretty quickly, which is to write down a thought that maybe common for you. You may notice this thought often comes up for me. And Claire, who has vitiligo, who's an interview, a participant that we interviewed who has vitiligo, a visible skin condition, said that one of their common thoughts was, "I'll stand out as usual and people will stare at me." And so that to her was a real hot thought, something that really, when she brings that to mind, it's really difficult. It's quite distressing. It brings up quite a lot of intense emotion. And so one way we can almost play with that thought is to write it down on paper. So first of all, you would write down, in Claire's case, "I will stand out as usual and people stare at me." So you write that down and then really click it, really absorb it, read it and think about it as this fact, this piece of information, and just notice what that does to your to the sensations in your body, to the emotion that comes with it. The second stage is to write down the same thing, or in fact you can just leave it as it is, and in front of it just write out, "I am having the thought that I will stand out as usual and people will stare at me." So it's the preceding, "I am having the thought that." And then again, just read it and see what it does. See if there's any difference there compared to just the phrase by itself. And what a lot of people find is that actually it just creates that little bit of distance. So it's still there, it's not changed in its content, it's just changed in its context. So it's there's a little more distance from it. It's now recognized as a thought that may or may not represent reality. We're not trying to test whether it's real or not, but it's just it's not a fact that we're getting caught up into, and so we're just creating a bit of psychological distance from it. So values, which is the other thing I've been talking about. So what do we mean by values? Quite a maybe difficult thing to wrap your head around sometimes, but it's essentially how we would like to act in daily life. For example, I would like to act with kindness. So it's kind of an acting with something, a quality of action. So it's there to guide how we act, a bit like a compass. So, and we can use values when we bring them to mind, either when we make plans or considering decisions, so a bit more long-term, a bit more considered, or in any moment when we're making a choice. So we describe that as a choice point, and just asking ourselves right there and then, what kind of person do I want to be right now? So it might be, for example, that someone responds in a particularly unhelpful way, and you might think, oh, that's down to my appearance, or that could be a possible explanation. And so at that point, just bringing to mind, what kind of person do I want to be right now? How do I want to respond? And it would be completely up to you. But often, if we respond in a very kind of threat-based way, we may not end up doing the things that really matter to us, and we may act in ways that are more defensive, for example. So what values aren't, because it's quite important just to clarify, they're not surface level things like attractiveness, because you can't act with attractiveness. It's not a quality of action. They're also, values are not feelings, like being happy or relaxed. So you can't say, I want to act with happy, because it's much easier as well to choose how you can actually act rather than how you can feel. So those are things that values aren't. How values and goals work together. So you can set little goals and action plans and things. This is part of acceptance commitment therapy. So using values as being like a compass, so directing what you want to do. And goals can be a way of, thinking about the places you want to go along the route that you're following according to your compass. So goals are slightly different. The goal might be, for example, I want to go and visit my friend. I mean, again, during COVID, this is difficult, but okay, so maybe during COVID, it might be, I want to speak to my friend on Zoom. Actually, I've not been feeling really good about the way I look recently, but I'm going to do it because it's important to me. My value is friendship or socializing. So we can do this right now, really. Anyone can do this, and in this instance, we're talking about appearance concerns, but it could be for anything. So in terms of appearance concerns, you might think, what right now are appearance concerns, if you have any, they may or not do, stopping me from doing? What things that actually I really like doing, in principle, are appearance concerns stopping me from doing? And then bringing a value to mind. What is one thing I can do today? Something realistic. So in a recent study we did where we were using ACT for people with visible differences, I think one person said, I'm going to hug my partner, because they hadn't been doing, because they were very self-conscious of their scarring. So I'm going to hold my partner. And I think they said, and actually allow my partner to touch the scarring. So it could be something that you could do today, something quite simple. And it's just that idea of bringing yourself slightly closer, more in line with your values. And what is one thing I can do within a week as well? So quite, straightforward things. They don't need to be too hard. It might be go out for a walk. Whatever you feel your appearance concerns are stopping you from doing, but you'd actually like to do, and aren't too difficult. But ultimately, these little things, like one thing I can do today, one thing I can do this week, could be stepping stones, goals along the way to something that might be a bit more challenging for you. So yeah, a bit more information. I've talked about ACT, but then you might think, well, how do I find more out about it? Well, one very well-known book is called The Happiness Trap, very accessible, gives an overview of acceptance and commitment therapy. Another one, which is a bit more specific to body image, is called Living with Your Body and Other Things You Hate. And it's actually, this has maybe a bit more of a background around weight, as a lot of the body image literature does. But, you might find some stuff in there that's really helpful for you. There are lots of exercises specifically around appearance. So, for example, there's an exercise where you're sort of actually using a mirror to look at your appearance, kind of scan from head to toe, and work through maybe some of the difficult emotions that come up with that. So I hope that's been of some use. If you're interested in generally getting more involved in the psychology of appearance, we actually have at the Centre for Appearance Research what we call a participant pool. So we would inform you of any research that you may be eligible to take part in as a participant. So if that is something that's of interest to you, the website is go.uwe.ac.uk/pp. And that's, as I said, somewhere that you can sign up to receiving any invites to research that would be eligible for. I hope that's been of some use and maybe just gives a bit of a taster of appearance concerns and ACT. And I should just say that the research we've done is funded via donation from the Vocational Training Charitable Trust, or VTCT Foundation in the UK, and that's a few of us there from the team. Take care.